Greetings. Welcome back to my channel, Ham Radio Test and Review. Today, we are going to be reviewing and testing the Radtel RT-890. That's the 890 model, and it is a compact or very small handheld walkie-talkie or HT. And I am going to put it through its paces, and I'll give you some opinions at the end. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all the specifications that I found on the Radtel website for this radio. So here's what I found while searching the Radtel website. First of all, the name of the company is Xiamen Radtel Electronics Company Limited. The FCC ID number is 2A ZSA-RT-890. It is actually specified as a dual band, so the 2 meter and 70 centimeter. But the frequencies is a very, very strange, because when you go out to their website, they claim in two different places on their website that it is a full band radio from 136 megahertz all the way up to 660 megahertz, both transmit and receive. When you dig a little bit deeper, they get into a little bit more depth, where they say that it will transmit and receive 136 to 199 megahertz, 200 to 299 megahertz, 300 to 400 megahertz, and then 400 to 520 megahertz. Also, it says that it will receive FM, AM air band, and the NOAA weather band. Stated power is 5 watts, and some other advertised features are 1 key copy frequency, automatic frequency match, USB Type-C charging, but I have to tell you that there is no Type-C charging port directly on the battery. The battery has to be on the radio in order to charge through the USB Type-C port, which is actually on the radio and not on the battery itself. Other options are CTS frequency and CTSS detection, 999 memory channels, channel name editing, Vox function, emergency alert function, which I believe goes along with the NOAA channels, scan function, battery save function, PC programming with the for the channel scanning, long distance emergency alarm. Yeah, I don't think any of us really use that. Frequency lock, wireless cloning, FM standby mode, transmit priority, timeout transmit timer, the Roger beep, busy channel lockout, and it goes back through all the different frequency detect features. They repeat them several times. So that's what I found on their website. As you will find out through some of the testing that we do today, that some of the things that they state on their website just are not true. The contents of the box are it comes with 1 battery, and it's 1100 milliamps. Comes with a cradle charger, which is a direct plug-in. It outputs 500 milliamps. 1 antenna, it's a rubber duck, 6 3/4 inches long, with a SMA female connector. There is no lapel mic or earpiece. There's no microphone speaker combo. It does come with a USB-C charging cable. It does come with a belt clip, and the belt clip is mounted to the battery. There is a wrist strap and an instruction booklet. Instruction booklet is 26 pages long, and even though it is in pretty decent English, it really doesn't tell you very much. It just basically tells you what each button does, and if you know what those functions are, then you'll understand it. But most of us, the Chinese to English translations sometimes don't come across very well, but it's very, very basic, and you really need to go out to the internet to find what you really want to know when you go to program it. There are no other items in the box, like a label or a screwdriver or anything like that. So that's really it. It's a very, very basic package. And it took a little bit to arrive. I bought it through Amazon, and I didn't pay very much money for it, but you know, these Chinese radios aren't very much money to begin with. Some of the other features that you might want to know about is, of course, it's got an on-off volume knob. The antenna connection on the radio itself is an SMA male. The screen itself does wash out somewhat in the sun, but it is a nice large color display. And when you turn it on, you get the nice blue Radtel in big blue letters. And then it flashes the model number, which you can change in the CPS software to whatever you want. And then you can also tell it to flash on there the voltage of the battery. Other items that it displays after it's turned on is the VFO A and B, a power meter when you transmit, frequency, squelch level, battery level if you decide to program that. The buttons that are on the radio itself are the menu button, the exit and a VFO AB button, up and down arrow keys, and an alphanumeric keypad. There's also a PTT key, which is pretty large, and it pushes fairly easily. You don't have to push it real hard. And then there's two programmable keys underneath the PTT key. On top of the radio is a transmit and receive light, and the alphanumeric keypad also has alternate functions for you, either with long press, short press type of thing, so you can program some of the other or know what the other programming for each of the buttons is. The battery charging is only a cradle, but you can charge the battery in the cradle without the radio in it. So you can charge a battery while you're using a different battery if you were to buy a second battery. However, once again, UBC charging is only while the battery is attached to the radio itself. And the instruction booklet is very, very basic. I'm reviewing the Radtel RT-890. This is a really nice little radio. It feels very solid in your hands. It comes with all the usual buttons, your keypad, alphanumeric keypad, your up and down arrow keys, your exit button, menu button, and also the VFO switch between A and B button. Over here on the side, we have our PTT key and two programmable keys. Over here on this side, we have the rubber flap that covers up the Kenwood connection if you want to put in a microphone or a programming cable. And then, of course, your USB-C. I don't know if that's going to really show up, but USB-C key. The radio itself has a little light on top. It turns red for transmit, green for receive. As you can see, I put a SMA male to BNC connector already on for the antenna. On the back, there's a little slot right here so you can slide in your belt clip. That means that the belt clip is attached to the battery, not to the case itself. I prefer the belt clips attached to the case itself because every time you buy a battery, you're going to either need to keep replacing the belt clip or buy another belt clip to put on each battery. As you can see, with the two connectors here, you can charge from the cradle, and it does come with the cradle. And the only way you can charge USB-C is if the battery is in the radio itself. There's no separate USB-C connector at all. And here is your release to release the battery. And by the way, the battery does come off very easily. Some radios, they don't come off easy, but this one does. Considering I'm old and I've got arthritis in my fingers, some of these do not come off that easy. All right, let's start doing our first set of tests. So I thought I would start off by comparing the Radtel RT-890 with the TID radio TDH3. The reason why I'm comparing them is because they're very similar in size. You notice the screen is a little bit larger on the Radtel. The on-off volume control is definitely larger. The TDH3, of course, has got a flashlight. The Radtel does not. Personally, I can do without the flashlight. Now, height-wise, you can see the Radtel is just a tad bit taller. Width-wise, you can see that the Radtel is just a tad bit wider. And thickness-wise, it looks like the TDH3 is just a little bit thicker. I'll do this. So it looks like the TDH3 is just a tad thicker than the Radtel RT-890. So there's a good comparison. How do they feel in the hand? Well, this one feels pretty good. However, the TID radio's got these little corners right here. I don't know how that well it's going to come up. And they do kind of push into your hand a little bit. That's the one complaint I have about the TID radio. The Radtel, on the other hand, has got all nice rounded corners, and there's no sharp edges. So as far as feel, and the biggest thing for me, though, is that I've got big fingers, and it's hard to push these little tiny buttons on the H3. The buttons are much larger on the RT-890 and much easier to push, and easier to not push a double one or accidentally push the wrong one. So let's turn the Radtel on, and you can hear the beeps and the voice.
Frequency mode.
So it's in frequency mode right now. I have not programmed this radio at all, except to try a few different frequencies. So the first test we're going to do is we are going to see if it does actually transmit and receive on the frequencies specified by the factory on their website. Now that's what I'm going by, is what they say on their website. Now on their website, they say two different things. They state that the radio is a full band radio, transmit and receive from 136 megabytes to 660 megabytes. But then they break it down to between 136 and 199 megahertz, then 200 to 299 megahertz, then 300 to 400 megahertz, and then from 400 to 520 megahertz. Now that's a lot different than 136 to 660. So we're going to start by testing these frequencies. So the bottom frequency is 136.
1, 3, 6.
Here I have my power meter and my SWR meter and frequency meter all in one, hooked up to the Radtel RT-890. And right now I've got it programmed for 136 megahertz. So let's see if it actually transmits and can get to 136 megahertz, which is the lowest specified frequency that is claimed by the factory. And as you can see, 136 megahertz, and it puts out 4.41 watts, which is pretty darn good for a little radio. Now, I put this on 135, 99999. And I'm going to try transmitting right now, and it doesn't transmit. So, as you can see, 136 is the lowest it will go. Next frequency that it says it will transmit up to is 199. So I'll put in 199, and let's see if it transmits. And yes, it does, 199, and it puts out a little over 2 watts. The next frequency range is specified is 200. So let's try 200. And here we go, 200. And yes, it does do 200. The next frequency range maximum they state is 299. So let's go to 299. And let's see if it transmits. And it does not transmit. Well, that's interesting, because it is stated right on their website that it will transmit on 299. So let's go down halfway between 200 and 299. We'll go to 250. See what happens. Oh, it doesn't transmit on 250 either. Interesting. All right, let's go to 225. And yes, it does. It transmits on 225. However, frequency counter is a little off, way off. 225, and the frequency is way, way off. All right, let us try. And by the way, the 0.08 watts is not very much. So let's just say that this does not transmit between 200 and 299. So if you're looking for a radio that is going to transmit between those frequencies, it's not going to. However, it will, since it's taking the frequency, it probably will receive on those frequencies. So let's try the next set of frequencies. The next set is 300 to 400. So let's see, 300, and it does not transmit on 300. Let's try 350. And once again, it does not transmit on 350. Let's try 400. And yes, it does. It transmits on 400, and it puts out 5.4 watts. Very, very good. So between 300 and 350, we got nothing. Oops. So 350, once again, it does not transmit. How about 375? Once again, does not transmit. Let's try 390. .390, it's actually receiving something, some sort of RF interference, but it is receiving, and again, it's not transmitting. So let's try 395. Nope, doesn't transmit. 399, and we'll call it a day. So 300 to 399, it does not transmit, even though it says right on their website that it does. So 3 to 400. However, it does transmit on 400, and the next set of frequencies, as stated on their website, is it transmits from 400 to 520. So let's try 520. And here we go. Does not transmit on 520. So let's try 475. And yes, it does. It transmits on 475. How about 480? And it does transmit on 480. Let's try 481. Does not transmit on 481. So it looks to me like the transmit range is not from 400 to 520, as stated on their website, but it is from 400 to 480, which will get you into the GMRS range with a minimal amount of power, about 3 watts or so. Above 480, let's try 500. Oh, we tried 520, right? Let's do 520 one more time. Does not do 520. How about 550? Nope. And it does say it goes all the way up to 600. So let's try 600. And it does transmit on 600, though it doesn't seem to be enough to register on my meter here. Let's go down to 599 just to see if it gets below 600. And it does transmit, however, my meter is not registering. So it stops at 480, and it starts up again somewhere above 520, but the power output is so minimal that it doesn't even register on my meter. So what do we what are we going to say about all that? Well, so we do transmit from 136 to 199. We do transmit on 200, but not to 299. We do transmit at 400, and from 400 up to 480, and that's it. And that is not what the website says. So we can conclude that the radio is not up to their specifications. And however, it does transmit on most of the frequencies that you're probably going to want to transmit on. I got a little suspicious with the fact that we couldn't get all the frequencies that are specified. So I ran the CPS software and I read from the radio, and look what I'm seeing here. They do not program in all the channels that they state will transmit on from the factory. So it looks like we're going to have to do this ourselves. So I'm going to save this, put it under our first stock config, and I'll back that up to the second stock config. Now, mind you, I haven't really configured this radio at all. So let's try it and we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm going to write to the radio and open up those frequencies. All right, I'll be right back and we'll figure out if the frequencies are opened up. Okay, we programmed the radio to take the higher frequency, so let's see if it works. We know that it wouldn't transmit from 201 to 299, so let's try 250 since it's right in the middle. Oops. Put too many buttons. Once again, my big fat fingers. All right, let's go 250. We know it didn't transmit on that. And there we go. It is transmitting almost 5 watts. So let's go then to 299 because we knew it didn't transmit on 299. Oh, there you go, 299. All right. So did that open up the 300 to 400? Because we also know that we weren't transmitting between 3 and 400. So let's try 350. And we are transmitting on 350, 3.92 watts. And let's try 399. I think that did open everything up here. Oh, sure. There we go. Oh, 6.6 watts at 399. Wow. So we do know that we transmitted from 400 to 480. And this was supposed to open it up to 520. So let's try 500. See if it gets to 500. And it does, but only 1.25 watts. Let's try up to 520. And we are transmitting, but just barely. And my frequency is not registering very well on the meter. So power is very low at 520. Now, again, it was supposed to transmit up to 600. So let's try 550 and see if that works. I doubt this is going to work. It does transmit, and it puts out low wattage, but not enough to even register the frequency on the meter. So I wouldn't count on it transmitting past 480, even though it is capable up to 520 or maybe even up to 600 as stated. But we're getting such low power readings and the frequency's not even registering on my meter. So I would keep it down around 480 and less, but it is transmitting on the other frequencies. Let's try in the 1.25 meter band just for shits and giggles. And it is such a low output, 0.08 watts on the 225 megahertz, which is the part of the 1.25 meter band. It just is not even registering properly on my meter. So again, I wouldn't call this a tri-band. I wouldn't even call it much of a dual band. But let's continue on with our testing because I'm done with the frequency testing. So let's try power output. I'm only going to do this on 2 bands because this really does not transmit properly on anything but the 2 major bands. So on the 2 meter band, 144 to 148 megahertz, I'm going to do it on the national calling frequency, which is 146.520. Let's see what it happens. And we do transmit 4.75 watts, which is pretty good for a little tiny radio like this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the power to low so you can see how it transmits at low power on 146.520. Low power, 3.336 or 7. So not a huge difference, but it is lower. Let's go back to high power. And I'll put in the 70 centimeter national calling frequency, which is 446,000. And let's try it at high power, 70 centimeter band. And that's 4.07 watts. And once again, we'll set it to low and see what it does. And 2.87 watts. All right, so there's our power test. You can see for a little radio, it actually doesn't do too bad. I probably specified as a 5-watt radio, but as you all know, 5-watt radios never transmit up to 5 watts most of the time. So, all right, let's move on to the next set of tests. All right, let's test some of the other frequencies that radio is specified as receiving. Let me turn it on.
Frequency mode.
Okay, let's try. Okay, that's the squelch turned off. Short press on the bottom programmable button. Let's do a long press. We get the NOAA frequencies here. And it is scanning all the NOAA frequencies, and I'm not receiving anything. That's very interesting. So does it receive NOAA frequencies? I can't tell. I do get 2 different NOAA weather frequencies here inside my shack, and I have my trusty signal stick attached to it. It should receive that with no problem, and yet here we are scanning all the NOAA frequencies and not receiving them. So I think we can say without any issues that this will not receive NOAA frequencies easily, or maybe not at all. Okay, turn that on. All right, let's test the top programmable key again. We'll do a short press.
Surgeon for 37 years.
And we get our FM radio.
Like most physicians of great experience.
And then our long press is our frequency detect.
Just taking a look at Supermont to see what was going on.
I'm running my
and
little
that
node
server
right now.
was bogged. I mean, it was...
running my little node right now, and it's able to pick up the signal and the correct frequency, though the incorrect CTCSS code. And also, too, the only way to turn it off is to turn off the radio. But I want to try something because I noticed something a little earlier. I had to program the top programmable key for a short stroke to do the FM radio in order to bring it up. But if I do the short stroke, okay, so it worked this time. Before I turned it off, the radio off, and it didn't keep the programming, but apparently this time it did. Okay, so we've done the NOAA, which it could not receive. We did the squelch off, it did work. We also did the frequency detect, which worked really well, except for the not being able to detect the CTCSS codes. And then we also did the FM radio. So all those seem to be working, except we're not sure about the NOAA at this point. So I wanted to also test the clarity and the modulation for the reception and the transmission. So as receive, as you can hear, it's picking up my node, and it seems very nicely.
Messages.
Of course, I turned it on at the wrong time.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I always associated that, the ASL would act very similar to how phone systems work, but.
So on receive, I think it's nice and clear. It sounds actually rather good to me. So let's try now on transmission. I've set up my Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS, which has very good quality reception, very good quality modulation. The sound is terrific on these radios, and you're looking at it right now, and I'm going to transmit to it via the the RT-890. This is N8DAV. Testing the RT-890 frequency and modulation. How is this sounding to you? From here, it sounds pretty good. So yeah, it's probably doing a pretty good job. So what are my general impressions of the Radtel RT-890? Okay, so it's a very small radio, just a tad bit bigger in 2 dimensions with the TDH3, and slightly smaller in the depth from the TDH3. It feels really good in the hand. I have to tell you, the TID Radio TDH3 has got a couple of, I'm not going to call them sharp edges, but a couple of corners that do dig into the hand. They're not going to cut you, but they do dig in. This radio is rounded all the way around, and it does transmit rather well. The power output was good on high all the way through. It does transmit well on the 2 meter and the 70 centimeter frequencies. But they advertise it as being an all-band radio, and it just is not. It doesn't transmit well on most of the other frequencies, especially the 1.25 meter, which I would just love to see work on this radio. It didn't put out enough power to even register on my meter. Also, when I did try to transmit with such low power, sometimes the frequency was registered incorrectly on my meter. Now that could be my meter's fault, or it could be the radio's fault, but seriously, these radios, they're cheap, and of course they're not going to perform as well as you would like them to. However, I don't want to take that away from the 2 main bands that this radio does transmit on. Also, we did get decent FM reception, and also it did the frequency detect, which was just really great. I turned it on and I forgot that my node was working, and so it picked up the frequency. It didn't pick up the CTCSS code correctly though. And then of course I get NOAA right here in my shack with absolutely no problems, and it could not pick up any of the NOAA frequencies. So there you go. It may not be very good in that respect. So just know that when you get it, if you do decide that this is the right radio for you, it's a good alternative to the TDH3. The menu system is pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but the buttons are very, very easy to press. They are very tactile, and so when you press it, you know you've pressed it. Whether you get a beep or not, or a click or not, you're going to know that you can feel it. And so you know that you're actually changing or configuring it the way you want it configured. So I believe that this would be a good radio for the money. It's not a great radio, but you know what? Most of the Chinese radios are not great radios, let's face it. Especially when you compare them to a Yaesu, ICOM, Malenko, whatever. Or some of the Wushans, or some of the other radios out there. So my feeling is it's worth the money if you're looking for a good alternative to the TID Radio TDH3. And I'm looking forward to the next review that we do. And that is the TID radio TDH3 Plus. You'll be amazed at some of the new features that that radio has. So this is, my name is Dave, and my call sign is November 8 Delta Alpha Victor, and I'm saying 73s and so long.